was a cold winter night and a group of hikers were making their way through the dense forest. The snow had already started to fall, and they knew they needed to find shelter before it got too dark. As they were walking, they came across an old cabin that looked abandoned. They decided to take their chances and check it out. The door was locked, but they managed to break it open. Inside, the cabin was freezing cold and dark. They could hear strange noises coming from the corners of the room, but they couldn't make out what it was. They started to make a fire, and soon the room was lit up with a warm glow. As they sat around the fire, they started to tell each other spooky stories to pass the time. Suddenly, they heard a knock at the door. They all froze and looked at each other, wondering who could possibly be out in the middle of nowhere on a cold winter's night. They cautiously approached the door and opened it, but there was nobody there. They were confused and a little scared, but they brushed it off as the wind or their imagination playing tricks on them. As they went back to the fire, they heard the knock again, louder this time. They all stood up, looking at the door. They slowly approached it and opened it again, but still there was nobody there. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped and they could see their breaths in the air. The fire had gone out and the room was pitch black once again. They could hear footsteps coming towards them, but they couldn't see who or what was making them. Just as suddenly as it had started, the footsteps stopped and the temperature in the room returned to normal. They quickly relit the fire and huddled together, too scared to say anything. The rest of the night was quiet and they all made it through until morning. When they stepped outside the cabin, they noticed strange footprints in the snow that led away from the cabin, but they never found out who or what had been knocking at their door that cold winter night in the forest. Despite their curiosity, the hikers decided not to follow the footprints and quickly made their way out of the forest. They were shaken by the strange occurrences of the previous night and couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Years later, some locals in the area would tell stories about an old hermit who lived in the forest and had died in that very cabin many years ago. They said that his ghost still roamed the woods and that he was known to knock on the doors of cabins looking for shelter. The hikers never returned to that part of the forest, but the memory of that cold winter night stayed with them forever. They never forgot the feeling of being watched by something unseen, and they never forgot the mysterious knocking that seemed to come from nowhere.